Hi everyone, my name is Aija Mayrock and I am a best-selling author and poet. I am very happy to be here this weekend for the Not One More weekend, and I'm going to kick it off by sharing my first poem with you called Wounds Like Crown Jewels. This poem is all about owning your vulnerability, owning your wounds, and your story. So here we go. Growing up, the world taught me that vulnerability should be a secret. I grew up believing that the hero of a story never showed signs of weakness. I disguised my demons so there would be no sign of struggle. My vulnerability is not my weakness. It is my superpower. I wear it like a cape and watch mouths gape at the sight of a warrior wearing wounds like crown jewels. My vulnerability is more powerful than wielding a sword or a shield. No one teaches us that resilience rises like a wildfire from pain. The battles you fight do not take away from who you are. Dare to teach the world that weakness doesn't exist. Weakness is just a seed that no one sees sprouting into genius. Own your story like you wrote it by yourself. You are the hero. The hero is imperfect. Wear those wounds like crown jewels. My next poem is called A Letter on Letting Go. If you want to fly, you must let go of all that weighs you down. You are nowhere near the end of your story. Your story has just begun to write itself. Let go of perfection. It doesn't exist. Let go of your demons. They are not welcome here. Let go of your trauma. You can live with it, but you need not live in it. Let go of wanting to go back. There is no going back. There is only going forward. And forward is more extraordinary than you could ever imagine. There is even something beyond the horizon.
Not one more.
Not one more.
Not one more.
Not one more life.
Not one more person suffering in silence.
Not one more needs to be going through this fight on their own.
Not one more.
Not one more teenage boy whose diagnosis is missed by physicians because he doesn't fit an eating disorder stereotype.
Not one more day listening to the eating disorder telling me I'm not enough.
Not one more transgender person struggling with an eating disorder.
Not one more person has to sacrifice to have treatment.
Not one more empty seat at the family dinner table.
Not one more means that not a single more person's potential, creativity, ability to connect, intellect, dreams are lost to an eating disorder.
Not one more voice goes unheard, and that not one more person's pain goes unseen.
Not one more family will be torn apart.
That not one more person is cut or denied from treatment.
Not one more person dying because they cannot access the care when and where they need it. I'm tired of doing bills about accessing care. We need coverage.
For me, as an LGBTQ plus person, not one more means not one more person in my community feeling like they have to suffer in shame, secrecy, and silence for who they are.
To me, not one more means that every single person with an eating disorder has access to treatment that works so that they can fully recover.
Not one more person feeling like they have to struggle alone.
Not one more family feeling despair or alone.
Not one more person who believes their body doesn't deserve unconditional love because every body is worthy and deserves support.
Not one more means making eating disorder treatment and recovery truly inclusive and intersectional.
Not one more means never again having to look into the eyes of a family who have lost a loved one to a treatable illness.
Not one more voice struggling in silence.
Not one more college student will have to go through college questioning their worth based on the size and shape of their body.
Not one more person feeling helpless and hopeless and isolated by their eating disorder.
When I think about Not One More, I think about me standing in a battle with the client, locked arms, looking the eating disorder in the face and saying, "Not one more. You're not taking this one."
Not one more person has to live another day feeling alone, ashamed, or unlike other people, for which reason they have to continue suffering in silence by themselves. It stops.
We cannot get better alone.
To me, not one more means that we all work together to see that not one more person struggles with guilt and shame or lives without hope that full recovery from an eating disorder is possible.
I believe in recovery because I have seen it happen before my own eyes.
Recovery can take place at any age. It's never too late.
And recovery is real.
Not one more means one more life saved. One more life that stays.
Recovery is possible, and people need to know that.
You deserve help.
You are not alone. You are not alone.
Not one more.
Not one.
Not one. Not one more.
Not one more.
Not even one.
Good evening, and welcome to this year's Not One More Rally for Recovery. My name is McCall Dempsey, and I am the founder and director of Southern Smash, a very proud program of the National Alliance for Eating Disorders. We are so thrilled that you joined us this evening as we come together to celebrate recovery, hear stories of hope, and important conversations around how eating disorders do not discriminate. We will also have a celebration of life, and of course, present this year's Global Changemaker Award to the one and only Demi Lovato. We'd like to say a special thank you to our presenting sponsors, the Sadler family and Bessemer Trust. Thank you for your generosity this year and throughout the year. We hope tonight leaves you feeling inspired and always knowing that recovery is possible and it's happening. Enjoy the show.
I am Admiral Rachel Levine, Assistant Secretary for Health at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. No one should have to suffer with an eating disorder, not one more person. These serious medical conditions affect Americans of all ages, racial and ethnic backgrounds, genders, sexual orientations, body shapes, weights, and socioeconomic statuses. I am committed to fighting eating disorders by improving access to care, reducing stigma, and expanding prevention awareness in our communities. We are working to train healthcare providers to identify eating disorders, quickly intervene, and connect individuals with the treatment that they need. Getting the support needed to make positive change is critical to successful treatment of eating disorders. The journey of recovery is a continuous process, and we all have a role to play. Not one more.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Shavise Turner, and I'm the co-CEO of the Body Freedom Project, and I am thrilled to be a part of this very, very important program. Not One More holds a deep, deep meaning to me. I've been in this field, the eating disorders field, for about 15 years professionally as an activist, but I've also been a part of the field unknowingly for much, much longer. It wasn't until my early 30s that I discovered that I had an eating disorder. And for years, I was sent to various weight loss clinics and weight management programs. And at the end of the day, where I really should have been was in eating disorder treatment. So Not One More is me. It's living in a higher weight body and having an eating disorder. It's living through the weight stigma of day-to-day life and the weight discrimination of day-to-day life. And I'm not alone. Actually, the majority of people in the eating disorders field, those people who are affected, who have eating disorders, are not in thin bodies. They're in average or higher weight bodies and often go unrecognized. For me, Not One More is about these people because they are unrecognizable to physicians, to eating disorder clinicians, and often to their own family. Living in a higher weight body brings a lot of challenges, not only in trying to get eating disorder care, but also just the day-to-day hurdles that we have to overcome. We are important. We are seen, and yet we're unseen because of our body size. And this means that oftentimes we don't get the treatment that we need. So, as a clinician, as a parent, as a person who might be struggling with an eating disorder, please, if you're living in a higher weight body, turn to the Alliance. Know that you are part of our community and that not one more person, including yourself, should have to struggle.
Hello, I'm Senator Tammy Baldwin from the great state of Wisconsin, and I'm pleased to join you today for this rally for recovery. Not one more. To me, that means through awareness, education, timely diagnosis, and accessible treatment, we can ensure that not one more life is lost to an eating disorder. And that's why in Congress, I've worked on legislation to expand access to affordable treatment and create programs that train medical professionals and school personnel to recognize and diagnose eating disorders so that more Americans receive the often life-saving care they need. Together, we can work towards a day where no one has to face an eating disorder alone. I'm honored to join you virtually here today to help spread awareness, advocate for change, and celebrate recovery. Not one more.
I'm Congresswoman Jackie Walorski, and I represent the 2nd District of Indiana. Across our nation, too many Americans, including vulnerable seniors and individuals with disabilities, face the devastating consequences of eating disorders. All too often, eating disorders spur secondary health problems that can even create more obstacles for vulnerable individuals and families. In Congress, I've been working to ensure that seniors and disabled Americans have access to the medical nutrition therapy they need to recover and thrive. I've learned that nutrition and wellness are key to improving quality of life and helping Americans succeed. Giving Americans a chance to hear personal stories and raising awareness of these important issues can really help move the needle. Together, we can build a brighter and healthier future. With your partnership, we can strive for a future when not one more life is taken. Not one more.
Hello, I'm Senator Jayne Shaheen from New Hampshire. I want to thank all of you for your work today raising awareness about eating disorders. I'm proud to join the chorus of those saying, not one more, which means taking purposeful action to end the stigma and support those struggling with eating disorders. That means learning and identifying the signs early and ensuring treatment and support systems are within reach for those who are in crisis. I was proud to sponsor and help pass key measures of the SERVE Act, which allowed Congress to take a meaningful step forward to ensure that our military members have equal access to treatment for eating disorders, just like the civilians they're sworn to protect. We are making progress, but we have so much more to do. I hope you all will continue to work with us to raise your voices and keep up the fight for more action so we can put an end to this deadly disorder. Not one more.
Hi, my name is Lisa Morano, and I'm the Development Manager here at the National Alliance for Eating Disorders. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our annual Not One More weekends. Tonight, I'm so excited to introduce you to our amazing panel discussion on eating disorders do not discriminate. You know, working in the eating disorder field, we hear so often many misconceptions and stigmas about eating disorders. And tonight you'll learn that those are simply not true. Eating disorders can affect anybody, regardless of age, gender, sexual orientation, body shape, or size. And it's so important that we reflect the voices of individuals who have been impacted by this insidious disease. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our panelists for Eating Disorders Do Not Discriminate.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for being here and tuning into this session. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Jayne Crabbe. I am a creator, writer, presenter. I talk about body positivity, eating disorder recovery, feminism, mental health, that kind of thing. And it means the world to be doing this panel, especially because eating disorder recovery is where my heart is at. And I am joined by a bunch of amazing advocates, humans, and we're going to have a really important discussion that I have never seen a whole lot of being discussed, and it's time. So thank you, Alliance, for providing us this space.
Well, I'm Schuyler. I use he, him pronouns. I am the first transgender athlete to compete for a Division I men's team in college, and that's how I really started the work that I do. But before that, I struggled with an eating disorder and recovered, and talk a lot about that experience, especially as a trans person of color, especially as a man, because we don't have a lot of that kind of visibility. And yeah, so I'm really passionate about being here. I work with Montanito and I work with Within, and I am just really excited to talk about gender inclusivity and be here with all of you amazing people.
I'm so excited to have you here, Schuyler. Also, we've known each other on the internet for years and we've literally
I know.
never spoken.
I know, it's really exciting to be in the same space with you, albeit virtually, but yeah.
I know. All right, and next to Schuyler we have...
Hi, I'm Mimi, and I'm a clinical mental health counseling intern. So I'm working in a group private practice right now. I came to this work because I had an eating disorder and I had a really great clinician who introduced me to intuitive eating and diet culture and everything like that. And I became really passionate about the work and integrating eating disorder recovery with OCD recovery, and bringing up voices who are misunderstood and also not heard in this work. So I'm really excited.
Fantastic. So good to have you here, Mimi. And down from Mimi, we have...
Hi, guys. My name's Abhilash Patel. I am a founder, investor, and now founder again, specifically in, well, let's put it this way. I'm 18 years sober from alcohol and drugs, but my path with eating disorders goes back before any of that. So I'm of Indian heritage. I'm a male, and I had an eating disorder before anything else. And now I get to work and help other men, women, people of color, adolescents, LGBTQ plus people. I use he, him pronouns, and excited to be here.
Fantastic, amazing. And last but not least...
Hello, my name is Jayne. I have my master's in clinical mental health counseling, worked as a therapist for a little bit, and then decided to go into coaching for eating disorders. I then started a business, Recovery, Love, and Care, where I provide accessible treatment to people within their eating disorder recovery. I myself had an eating disorder. And I talk a lot about being a part of a treatment team, collaborative care, and what that looks like in my scope of care as a coach. And I myself am quite newly disabled in the past 4 years and live with chronic illnesses and am a disability advocate. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us here. I just want to give a heads up before we dive into it. Anyone watching, we are, of course, going to be cautious. We're going to be honest about our experiences, but we are going to be cautious around things like numbers, behaviors. So breathe, we got you, we're good. Today, we are going to be talking about representation. We're going to be talking about the stereotypical image of eating disorders that we see all around us, that we all saw in our experience, in our recovery, how it maybe hindered us. I think this is genuinely the most representative panel on eating disorders that I have ever witnessed. I don't know about you all, but growing up, the only representation I really ever saw were slim, white, young, often affluent TV characters. We all know it's more complicated than that. Eating disorders do not discriminate when it comes to race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, age, class, neurodivergence, disability. There is such a bigger picture and there are so many more experiences to recognize. So I'm really, really happy to have these voices in this room right now. And I think we can just dive straight in. I want to know from you all, maybe start with Mimi, what is your memory of the stereotypical eating disorder representation that we have had, and how did it impact you in your recovery?
Yeah, I remember in high school, we learned about bulimia and anorexia, and I feel like that's usually what it's limited to. The people in the videos were very impaired in their lives in terms of constantly engaging in behaviors. And so I didn't realize that impairment doesn't just mean that you are home all the time with your caregiver or something like that. It can look like functioning in daily life, but actually being really struggling with your relationship with food and your body. And so when I learned about that, I was like, okay, well, eating disorders, like no one around me has them because no one around me has those intense like behaviors. And so I thought that eating disorders were just for thin white women. And I saw that stereotype a lot. And I really wish I had known more about what eating disorders are so that I could have known when I was struggling what that looked like and how I could receive help. But yeah.
And I guess now as well, the knowledge that you have leads you to be able to help the people around you as well and then be better in the work that you do.
Yes, definitely.
Amazing. We need more. We need more people on that side as well, helping others. Perfect. I'm going to come to Jayne. What about you? How do you think that stereotype of eating disorders maybe limited your access to care?
Yeah, I think it limited my access to care mostly in regards to like my family's resources to understanding what to look for. I am a thin white woman, and I was very able-bodied at the time, and kind of fell into that description, but it was still kind of looked over as normal behavior, that very quote unquote atypical that I don't agree with. Case. And so if I feel that if my family had better resources to understand what to look for and how to discuss these things with doctors and therapists, even when I was seeing a doctor and a therapist, they didn't notice these things. And so I think for me it was, and similar to Mimi, it's like we kind of learned this, that it's either one like bulimia or anorexia, and it only presents in certain ways. So I think if anything, those resources are so important for a support system, especially when it presents in younger adolescents.
Yeah, for sure. And also the point you made about family not necessarily understanding, I feel like that brings out a whole other layer, because even if you have representation, you still also have stigma to deal with. You still also have misunderstanding. And I'm definitely curious, the men in the room, would you say that that stereotype of what eating disorders look like, did it hold you back from even identifying as someone who had experienced an eating disorder, Schuyler?
Well, I think for me, it was a little complicated because my eating disorder took hold before I transitioned and before I realized that I was transgender, and was also integral or my care for my eating disorder was integral in figuring out that I was trans. So in some ways, I suppose there was like, I don't know if luck is the right word, but I was fortunate that I was looked at the time as a woman, right? People perceived me as a woman, and so there was one less barrier to care in that sense. And I presented as a thin woman as well, and I think that again I fit the bill in some senses. I think though I definitely experienced limitations because of what I thought eating disorders were, right? Kind of what Mimi and Jayne were saying about like sort of these strict behaviors equal eating disorders, but there's so much more there. And I think learning about that again with my family was really helpful. Me learning what things were difficult for me and being able to name them and be able to be like, this is something I don't want to continue doing, right? These are things that are hindering my life. But I think with gender, for me, the biggest thing was actually in treatment and being treated for my eating disorder, and recognizing that some of the distresses that I was experiencing with regards to my body actually weren't based in eating disorder issues, but rather in gender dysphoria, and then being told that I was wrong, right? So I think my like gender experience was more about treatment and less about the discovery of the eating disorder due to the time when I learned about my transness.
Ablash, I haven't forgotten about you down there in the corner. I'm coming to you now. You've said earlier that you have had a journey with sobriety, but the eating disorder experiences came before that. Is that in hindsight? Did you recognize at the time that you were someone who was struggling with an eating disorder? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. I'd say that I was not confused at all about whether or not I had an eating disorder. Here was the part that in hindsight is really hard. I knew I had an eating disorder. I was ready to ask for help. That's the hardest thing. Many people just are unwilling to ask for help. And yet I got to that point. I'm ready to surrender. I'm ready to ask for help. please tell me what to do, because I was in a lot of pain with this disordered behavior. And when I get to a point of ready to ask for help, I go online privately. I'm not able to talk to my family about it because of a lot of what Schuyler talked about. And yet I look online and I saw a bunch of skinny white women who weren't talking to me, who I certainly didn't identify with, and who certainly weren't inviting me to group. And so I had nowhere to go, right? I guess I'm just going to deal. And for that reason, it may be cliche, but I carried on, right? And I'm not that unique, right? As Mimi, you talked about it, like, beautiful, right? I'm not that unique. There's a lot of other people, and my parents, even to this day, haven't acknowledged that I had an eating disorder. So it's totally fine. But there's plenty of people out there that don't need to be alone, if we can get loud enough, right? Or if they can hear us. So that's what matters to me.
Heck yeah. And can I ask, do you feel like you can now go online and feel seen, feel represented? Do you think we're not there yet?
Look, I know enough. I know a little bit to know that progress is more important than perfection, and my expectations are often unrealistic. You said it at the beginning of this session. Wow, look at the people that I get to look at and that I get to be with. If you rewound the tape to when I was battling my raging eating disorder, this would never have happened. So I'm thrilled that this is happening now. Do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. Are there a lot of people right now that are stuck in shame and isolation and don't know where to go? And maybe they are asking for help. I hope they are, right? I hope they're desperate and willing to ask for help. But they don't know we're here yet. So there still is a lot of work to do in from my perspective, right? Just for me. So yeah, we got to get loud.
Wow.
Can I
Does
add
anyone
on?
else? Oh, yeah, go.
I interrupted you, but I was just thinking, like, sort of replaying back Abhilash's statement. I think, like, this wouldn't have happened even 5 years ago. I mean, it hadn't happened yesterday, because I haven't been on a panel that's diverse with eating disorder conversations ever. And I still am on calls and coaching, sessions with people pretty frequently, where somebody's a trans kid, a usually trans masculine person, being like, I don't know where to go. Where's the place that's going to take me? I don't want to go to a place filled with women, but I also don't know where to go that is different, right? So we still have those issues, and it's exactly what Abhilash is saying, is that there are starting to be the resources, but we need to tell people that they're there. And it's kind of like the problem kind of goes around in a circle, right? Because if you don't think that there are the resources there, you won't access them, and then there won't be diverse places. And if there aren't diverse places, you won't go there, and then it just keeps going.
Another thing that this all reminded me of is how there are a lot of misconceptions about eating disorders, even for those who meet the criteria for the stereotypes. And so people are being missed who are the stereotypical image of someone with an eating disorder, and then how much more are people being missed who don't meet that criteria. And so the more proximal you are to the most privileged, the more that you're able to receive care and access and things like that. And an advocate, Nia Patterson, talks about how if we make treatment accessible for the most marginalized, it helps everybody, because it goes from like all those necessary steps into the world.
I think it's worth adding one thing to that, along the lines of the fact that this couldn't have happened before, right? Think about the moment in time that we're at now. Schuyler, you're right. Maybe this wouldn't have happened yesterday. Maybe this wouldn't have happened 2 years ago at the beginning of pandemic, but certainly not 5. There are things that technology allows us to do now that weren't possible before. We can now reach and allow people who are stuck in shame or in relatively, when the world gets really small, right? And I'm not willing to step outside to access a provider, it doesn't mean necessarily that eating disorder recovery has to be inaccessible. There are issues of economics, there's issues of technology, but it's definitely more possible now than it had been in the past for all kinds of reasons. So I think the pace of change is getting faster too. So it's gonna get better, even more so if we look at tomorrow or next year, what the next 5 or 10 years look like.
It's so tricky, isn't it? Because on the one hand, we have this growing body of evidence about the impact that social media and the internet is having on eating disorder statistics and people who have eating disorders. On the other hand, it's allowing us to do things like this. And Ablash, you're absolutely right. That just means we need to shout louder. I actually feel very inspired, very inspired being here. And I'm going to, if nothing else, I'm going to take that away. Shout louder. It's about your younger self while you were in the midst of your eating disorder or coming into recovery. When I think about my younger self, if I could dip back and say anything to her, I would probably reach back to the point where I had started my recovery, because that's when I felt the most alone. I have a really vivid memory of spending hours sat at my computer just trying to find anyone whose recovery looked like mine. I didn't have any examples, people who physically looked like me, people who were talking about the same things that I was feeling. So I assumed that I was recovering wrong. And if I could go back, I would probably hold young Megan's hand and tell her there is no way to physically recover wrong. I mean, whatever happens in your recovery to your body is what is meant to happen to your body. You're allowed to accept that body. And there are lots of people feeling the things that you're feeling. We're just not talking about it right now, but hold on 10 years and we will get there. What would any of you say to your younger self when you most needed it? Jayne, can I come to you first?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because you say younger self, but I kind of even went just towards like young adult. I mean, even in my recovery when I felt really strong, again, I was a quote unquote very healthy, able-bodied person. And the mantra I went by that kind of helped me along in my recovery was it's not about what your body looks like, it's about what your body can do. And then my body stopped doing. And I was like, well, now what? And so I wished at that moment, and it was truly ableism that brought me here, because I wouldn't have become aware of the internalized ableism until I became disabled. And I think it is now that it's like, it's not about what my body can do. It's about what it allows me to experience. And that's so incredibly powerful for me now, even in this moment, a decade in recovery, in full recovery. It's like, wow, it's just about experiencing. It's a container for my soul and spirit. And it's not about doing or achieving.
That's so interesting. And I think there are quite a few kind of phrases or, motivational quotes around recovery that are deeply embedded with ableism. And that's just not very often acknowledged, is it?
Right. And again, it's because of ableism. I think that we don't realize it. I mean, I have so much internalized ableism because of how I've looked at bodies and the mechanics of bodies and what strength means and what all of that means. And so now, like, kind of getting thrown into it, and the fragility of the human body is quite real. We can all experience this. I hope people don't, but you could tomorrow. And so it's like, okay, this isn't about what my body could do because it can't do anything right now. So I might be perceiving this as a body betrayal, but really it's doing everything to keep me alive. And I think that if that mantra probably helped me at some point in recovery, because I did recover. But again, I wish like I could tap myself on the shoulder and be like, whisper and say like, it's really not about what it can do.
I say to my younger self, I mean, I think what I always think about with regards to my transness is I'd really go back even to before my eating disorder and be like, hey, little dude, like, you got it. You know who you are. I think I spent a lot of time as a kid really just being myself. And then right around puberty, I started being somebody that other people wanted me to be. I started really being this version of myself that I knew other people saw me as or wanted me to become. And that was really when my eating disorder started. And it's because I was being completely inauthentic to myself. And I could like feel myself crawling out of who I was. And I've always just wanted to go back. It's like 8 or 9 years old and just be like, you do you, like you know who you are, and you just need to keep being that. And people are going to tell you to not be that. But then as I've gone through my journey and situated myself in where I am now, I'm so grateful for every part of my journey. And I don't know if I'm grateful for my eating disorder. That's the wrong way to put it. But more recently, I realized that going through that process really did save my life in many ways, because it was how I survived at the time. And I'm not at all saying that I want anybody to have an eating disorder. I deeply do not. It was horrible, but that was how my body survived. That's how I survived. And I have gratitude for how all of me, my body, my psyche, my system, if you will, coped.
I don't want to follow that. I was thinking how much I appreciate the alliance. I was not expecting to feel the way I'm feeling right now. I wasn't expecting to feel moved by this conversation with you guys. It's really amazing. I love what I've heard, and I feel connected to you guys. I think if it was my younger self, and I remember hearing about Shavisa's name talking about the discrimination against people in bigger bodies, and I identified with that too. I was ashamed because I was made to feel bad. There's no words about it. I was made to feel awful, and I was in shame. And it wasn't until, and by the way, regarding being able-bodied, I totally identify with that. After having suffered a major bicycle accident, being in a hospital with a shattered skull and a bleeding brain, unable to move at all, I still couldn't manage a healthy relationship with food because I was still ashamed, and I wasn't given permission to be okay. And I didn't realize that, because similar to some of you guys, trauma was at the heart of my disordered eating. I didn't give myself permission to be okay. And it wasn't until I found out that that was possible that just, so that's what I would ask my younger self, to give me permission to be okay and to speak up, because I'm not alone.
I think I would tell her that this isn't the whole world, because I've been in school for about 20 years now. And in academia, I feel like there's a lot of like wealthy, thin people in the world, and that's considered like normal. And we talk about health and a lot of disordered eating and nutrition and things like that. And so I think my whole life growing up, I didn't really see people that looked like me. I didn't really see people who were in larger bodies or in any kind of diversity. And so I thought that was kind of the whole world around me must be what the whole world looks like. And I think it's really helpful to know that's not even like an accurate representation of any part of the world. There's so much more diversity and so much more to talk about and see in our world than what is kind of right in front of us and in those smaller spaces. So I think I would just be really gentle and say, like, this isn't everything. There's people like you. There's people who aren't like you in different ways.
This has been so good. I would love to ask a final question, but I'm going to put you all on the spot and say you're only allowed to answer with one word, okay? Brace yourselves. What does recovery mean to you in one word? If you've got your word, you can give me a little signal just to, okay, Schuyler, boom.
Freedom.
Yes.
I would say resilience.
Ooh, good word, good word. Mimi?
I would say seeing.
Seeing?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to have to ask you to say more about that.
Yes. So I was thinking about how it really opens your eyes to the experiences of other people and myself. I think it is a very identity forming for a lot of people. So it really helps shape you into the person that you are, but really having eyes open to what's going on in the world, what's going on inside of me, things like that.
Connection.
Because the opposite of, well, it doesn't quite fit, but the opposite of addiction is connection, right? It's the, yeah.
Purpose.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, I'm going to give my words. It's going to be possibility. Life after an eating disorder can be whatever you want it to be. And that is the beauty of it. That is the power of it. Oh, I am feeling very, very inspired. I hope everyone watching is feeling very inspired. Not one more. Not one more. Okay. That's all we've got time for. This has been genuinely beautiful, inspiring. Thank you all so much for sharing yourself with us. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the entire weekend. And take care. We believe in you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Bye, friends.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miriam Delphin-Rittman, and I currently serve as Assistant Secretary for Mental Health and Substance Use with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. To me, not one more means that eating disorders no longer interrupt the lives of young, healthy individuals who have the opportunity to live fulfilling lives. It means that not one more individual feels alone because of their eating disorder or suffers in silence. Not one more family grieves for a loved one's life cut short. And not one more person believes that there is no hope for recovery. The isolating impacts and stigma associated with eating disorders make it difficult for individuals to recognize that there is help out there, which is why it's up to each and every one of us to advocate for awareness and fight for greater access to mental health and recovery services. Those struggling with eating disorders deserve to know that there is help and hope for a better life, not one more.
Thank you for joining us for the National Alliance for Eating Disorders Rally for Recovery. It has been wonderful to hear so many inspiring and hopeful stories from the Alliance's amazing community. As you've heard tonight, eating disorders are not a choice. They wreak havoc on countless families like my own. They are serious mental illnesses, and unfortunately, more than 25 lives are lost every day. When I was struggling with my own eating disorder, I felt alone and ashamed and isolated. And I thought I would never, ever be able to lead a normal life. I only wish that I would have had access to a supportive community like the Alliance's when I was in the depths of my darkness. But with access to care and support, recovery is possible. With the help of the Alliance, individuals and families are able to live their lives beyond eating disorders. Throughout this Not One More weekend, many of you have been raising funds to help support the Alliance's accessible, life-saving support groups. Last year, almost 19,000 participants logged on to these support groups, where they were able to find connection, understanding, and heartwarming support. The Alliance is the only national organization providing free, therapist-led support groups, and it is their hope to offer even more in 2022. So tonight, I humbly ask you to open your hearts and make a donation to the Alliance. Please text Not One More to 50115 now, or visit notonemore.co to make a donation. Your gift directly supports families across the world. With your help, the Alliance will be able to continue providing programs and services so that not one more moment, not one more memory, not one more life is lost to this insidious disease.
Hi, I'm Tom Tillis, Senator from the great state of North Carolina. Thank you to the Eating Disorders Coalition for asking me to participate in the National Not One More Rally for Eating Disorders Awareness. Helping individuals and families with eating disorders is very important to me, and I'm working hard to do whatever we can to help. Congress recently passed the SERVE Act, bipartisan legislation I introduced that will expand access to care for families of service members battling eating disorders. I'm also proudly co-leading the Anna Weston Legacy Act, bipartisan legislation which reauthorizes and expands the National Center of Excellence for Eating Disorders. Located in Chapel Hill, the center trains thousands of health professionals on how to screen, intervene, and refer families throughout North Carolina and the nation to treatment for eating disorders. Not one more means to me that not one more family should ever have to experience the tragic loss of their child from an eating disorder. One death every 52 minutes is unacceptable. Not one more.
Hello, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu from California's 27th District. To me, not one more means all of us coming together to make sure that not one more person with an eating disorder feels alone, isolated, or like they have nowhere to turn. Eating disorders can affect people at any age, not just young people. It's estimated that between 3 to 4% of Medicare beneficiaries have an eating disorder, but they often lack access to treatment. That is why I'm proud to have introduced H.R. 1551, the Nutrition Care Act. This bipartisan bill requires Medicare to cover medical nutrition therapy for patients who have been diagnosed with an eating disorder. This bill will ensure that seniors with eating disorders can access the treatment they need before their disease requires hospitalization or inpatient treatment. I'm pushing to pass the Nutrition Care Act and ensure that there's not one more person left suffering alone with their eating disorder.
My name is Abigail Spanberger, and I represent Virginia's 7th District in Congress. That's 10 counties across the Commonwealth of Virginia. Far too many families, far too many communities are impacted by eating disorders, the challenges that they create for those who are suffering, their family members, and the larger community. Not one more means to me that not one more person with an eating disorder won't recover, and instead that one more American will move beyond their eating disorder, will move into recovery, and will have a bright future. Raising awareness about eating disorders and the severity and impact and mortality that they can cause is incredibly important to me because of the stories I've heard from advocates in our district. Your advocacy is incredibly important to ensuring that Congress continues to prioritize the investments and the oversight necessary to continue the fight against eating disorders. So there's not one more.
Hi, my name is Ellen Bennett. My daughter was Caitlin Bennett. She lost her battle to anorexia at the age of 25 in 2013. When we talk about our children or our loved ones who have been lost to this insidious disease, there are striking characteristics that are hauntingly similar. Highly successful, determined, limitless potential, inspiring, captivating, light up the room personality. You just wanted to be around them. Katie was that girl. She got everyone involved. A friend once said, Katie had gravity. Yes, that's it. She had gravity. She pulled you in. You wanted to be connected. And you were connected. For all the Katies, for all our loved ones, we remember.
One of my favorite memories about Jennifer is Fiddler on the Roof. For years, Jennifer had been very active in the community theater in our area, and when auditions were announced for Fiddler, she made a very bold decision. She appeared at the auditions, standing on the stage, looking up at directors, and told them she hadn't prepared a song to sing. She was going to be the fiddler, and she pulled out her violin and began to play a concerto that she had learned. When the directors told her they'd heard enough, Jennifer insisted they hear the entire piece. And a few weeks later, our slender daughter was morphed into a bearded, middle-aged Jewish man. The show was a success, and the newspaper remarked on Jennifer, stating, 15-year-old Jennifer Mathiasen may be short in stature, but she's big in musical talent. That's one of my favorite memories.
Hi everybody, my name is Kim Paikunka, and I am so honored to celebrate my sister's 20th year anniversary with a celebration of her life. Casey Paikunka was a funny person. She was the life of the party. She was gregarious. She was definitely adventurous. She was in constant trouble. She was a troublemaker for sure. We definitely fought, but we were best of friends. She is my childhood memory. We did everything together. I miss her. I miss that joy in her. She just eluded happiness. So I can't imagine for all of us who have lost somebody, a better way to honor them with the celebration of their life. Today I celebrate all those people, and for sure to my sister, love you, girl.
Hi, we're Joe Spears' parents, Deanna and Gordon. This is Joe's dog, Maisie.
Joe played a lot of sports growing up, and one story I remember, he played ice hockey for his high school team. There was a girl on Joe's team, and somebody on the other team took a run at her, and next time Joe was on the ice, he chose to retaliate against this guy and drew a penalty. Well, that night I was the penalty box door person. I said, Joe comes to serve his penalty, and he sits down. I said, Joe, that was a crazy penalty. You put your team at a big disadvantage. And he looks at me seriously, and he goes, Dad, you're seriously going to give me parental advice while I'm sitting in a penalty box?
One of my favorite memories is filming him participating in the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. He took a long time preparing, filling this huge bucket with ice and cold water. He went through the whole challenge only to realize that it was not filmed. So he had to take a take two.
Oh my God.
Hi, my name's Jack Major, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit about my daughter, Emily Major. Emily passed away in August of 2016 at the age of 35 after losing her long battle with anorexia. After her passing, we went through photos of her for her services, and in all her pictures, she was laughing and smiling and happy. And that was the essence of Emily. That was the way she was her whole life. We have to continue this fight to increase the awareness of eating disorders, increase medical communities' knowledge of eating disorders, increase insurance coverage, and more affordable treatment until there is not one more.
not one more. Not one more individual or family failing to be educated that eating disorders are serious biological illnesses, with much of the risk being genetics. Eating disorders are not a choice. Not one more individual or family failing to receive early intervention and going undiagnosed for years or decades. Not one more individual or family failing to receive the support and care that they so desperately need and deserve. Not one more individual or family being told that eating disorders are a lifetime sentence and are not taught that full recovery is absolutely possible and there can be freedom. Not one more individual or family walking this journey alone. Not one more.
Good evening. I am so happy that you are joining us for this rally for recovery. My name is Joanna Candell, and I'm the founder and CEO of the National Alliance for Eating Disorders, formerly known as the Alliance for Eating Disorders Awareness. I cannot thank you enough for being here tonight and for all of you who have joined us throughout this Not One More weekend. Also, thank you for allowing us to celebrate the individuals that are no longer here as we fight for not one more loss to this insidious disease. Now, if you are currently experiencing an eating disorder or love someone who's experiencing an eating disorder, please know that you are not alone, that you are seen and heard, and that the Alliance is here to walk next to you on your journey. Now, many people ask what Not One More is and how it got started. Well, a bunch of us were sitting around a table and we heard of another life that was stolen all too soon from this disease. I turned to a coworker and I said, "Not one more." And it has actually become our battle cry and our North Star in everything that we do here at our organization. So, just a reminder that the conversation doesn't end here and now. It continues every single day until not one more moment is stolen to an eating disorder. And now, I am very thrilled and honored to honor Demi Lovato with our Global Changemaker Award. Demi has gone above and beyond to make sure individuals are seen and heard, that they know that they are not alone. They have used their experiences as a way to incite change. They are a truth teller, and because of their truthfulness and honesty, hundreds of thousands of individuals have sought help for their eating disorder, for their substance use, and well, for so much more. So it's for this and everything that they will continue to do on behalf of all of us here at the National Alliance for Eating Disorders. Thank you, Demi, for being our global change maker and for creating so much change for so many across the world.
Hello, it is an honor to be receiving Global Changemaker Award at the Alliance for Eating Disorders Awareness annual global event, Not One More Weekend Rally for Recovery. I'm so deeply appreciative to have had the chance to work with the Alliance. You are a community of truth tellers that provide a voice that is often missing from the mental health space, and I deeply appreciate the profound impact of your work. Eating disorders affect people of all ages, genders, socioeconomic statuses, shapes and sizes, sexual orientations, abilities, neurodiversities, races, and ethnicities. That is why it is so important to let others know that they are not alone and that it gets better. I want to continue creating spaces that shatter the stigma surrounding eating disorders because being seen and understood is the first step in getting the help and support you need. To me, Not One More means not one more soul has to navigate eating disorders feeling alone. That not one more is left thinking there is no hope. That not one more life is taken away. Together, our collective voices can make a tremendous impact. Thank you for showing up and being a part of the movement.
Hello, I'm Senator Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire. Not one more means to me that we must all come together to support those affected by eating disorders and help end the stigma around this illness. Millions of Americans are battling eating disorders, and it's essential that they know that they are not alone. That starts with raising awareness, just as you are all doing today. It also means ensuring that we treat this as the public health challenge that it is, and invest in making sure that individuals who are battling an eating disorder have access to the resources and support that they need. I'll continue working with all of you, and I'm grateful for all that you are doing to share your stories and to push for change. Not one more.
Hi, I'm Virginia Senator Mark Warner. As someone who, in my own personal family, have had family members struggle with eating disorders, I know how crippling this can be to so many families. And we at the federal government level need to do more to support programs, laws, and funding to make sure that we do all we can to prevent eating disorders, and then to make sure we do all we can to provide the treatment and hopefully cures to this dreaded challenge. I know there's more to be done, but thank you for your work on this terribly important topic.
Hello, Not One More participants. Thank you for supporting this weekend's activities. My name is John Katko, and I proudly represent New York's 24th Congressional District and serve as a co-chair of the Congressional Mental Health Caucus. Raising awareness about eating disorders and supporting legislative solutions to address mental health challenges has been a priority throughout my time in Congress. To me, Not One More means a future where friends and loved ones struggling with an eating disorder have access to the support and tools they need to live a healthy life. I understand firsthand how challenging this illness can be from a family member of mine and for so many other Americans. That's why I'm committed to supporting ways we can prevent this illness and enable individuals to get the care they need. Not one more.
My name's Anna Sweeney, and I am a certified eating disorder registered dietitian. I believe in recovery because I have seen it happen before my own eyes. I entered this field in response to my sister developing an eating disorder. She has gotten well, and I have since worked with thousands of people over many levels of care. I can say very, very confidently that recovery happens and that I believe in you, even though we don't know each other. And I'm so grateful that you are here and enjoying this weekend.
Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We hope you enjoyed the Rally for the Recovery, the celebration of life, all the moving messages from members of Congress, and of course, our global changemaker, Demi Lovato. Tonight's message was that help is available and recovery is possible. And if there's anything that you need or your loved ones need, please reach out to the National Alliance for Eating Disorders. We're here to help. We'd like to again thank our presenting sponsors, the Sadler family and Bessemer Trust, as well as all of the other generous sponsors for tonight's event. We'd also like to thank the many nonprofit and organizational partners we had promoting this across the world. Again, on behalf of our entire team at the National Alliance for Eating Disorders, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Not one more.